Hey everyone, Luke here, and now before I get into the reviews I just want to make a very quick announcement. This will be a 3-part review. I'll be doing chapters 127, 128 and 129. I'll be doing all 3 that I've missed, so yeah, this will be quite a long one, so you might want to get a snack or something because we're going to be here for quite a while based on what you know about me and how long my reviews can be. We could be here for like an hour and a half at least. So yeah, this is probably going to be one of the longest videos I've ever done. But yeah, with all that said, let's just get right into the review because, oh boy, we got a lot to get through. Now, before I actually get into the reviews, I just want to say something as well, guys. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I was using a website called Manga Kakalot, or so, I guess that's how you pronounce it. And when I first read the chapter 127, I was a bit confused because all the panels were out of order. Now, eventually I went back and I was able to actually read the chapter and actually able to get the full grasp of it. But I just want to know, did you guys experience that yourselves as well? Because I was a bit confused by why all that was actually happening. But anyway, that's besides the point, so let's just jump right into the reviews. Alright, so this will be chapter 127, titled Confrontation. Obviously, this is a reference to the fact that Emma has told Norman about Musica and Songju, and Norman views Musica as like this evil blood demon, like maiden type thing. And this is a chapter where we finally find out exactly what the whole deal is with her, how she's been able to actually keep her form without actually having to eat humans. And I've got to say, it's pretty much an idea that I and some of us had in mind of what it would actually be like. Alright, so the chapter starts off in a flashback where we go back 700 years. Now, obviously, if you remember from the Goldie Pond arc, we had a chapter, or we had a flashback that took place 800 years ago, so like 200 years after the whole promise had been created between the Vitari clan and the demons, and that was a flashback involving Bayon and Lewis, or Luvis, however you pronounce his name now that it's been officially revealed. And we see that we have this whole city that's just been decimated, and where we have like a bowl that's actually covered in cobwebs, basically not being eaten or anything. We see one demon saying, "Where's the meat from the farms? We've barely eaten humans in 2 years." So obviously this is probably someone from Gilon's clan that was actually banished because of something, because of a certain situation that had actually happened, and this is now just like basically becoming scavengers at this point in time. And I really like the design of this demon because it's got like an head bandana, but like a certain spot where it's mid-eye, like its weak point actually is, and it's pretty cool to actually have a demon of this actual design in the actual series. We see other demons actually discussing the situation, like other members of this particular family, with them saying, even if we get something, it's mostly just arms and legs. I'm so hungry. I heard the neighbouring town went extinct. They all turned into savages. So again, this is actually a good way to actually expand upon Norman's explanation of what the demons actually are, and like the suffering that they've actually gone through themselves as well. So it's like, again, the series is not all black and white. There's like shades of grey as well. And these demons, like, they're just so hungry that they just want to eat something at this point, because they've just seen what decimate that the other towns have actually gone to, and how desperate they're actually getting at this point. And continuing on, we get some of the demons that are just really getting desperate before we see Musica just jumping in and saying, "Please come with me." Actually, before these demons actually meet up with Musica, there is one panel I want to talk about, and it's a panel and it's a panel in this particular point where they're actually thinking about all the demons that in the neighbouring town that actually turn into scavengers. And we see right here a female holding her baby and just like worrying so much about what's going to happen to this baby. Is it going to be turned into a scavenger? And I could just, oh my god, the nightmare fuel that would actually bring, the fact that there's going to be like a demon that's going to be like mutated to like this monstrous being, and it's just going to be a little baby, and the fact that and the fact that the humans at this point cannot see how much of a detriment that's been to the enemy, even though they are the enemy, there's still innocents caught in the crossfire here, and the fact that they're just worrying about their own safety and their own survival again shows like just how corrupt both the humans and the demons are in this situation, but more so how much corrupt the demons are because of how much subjugation they've had with their own kind, and the monarchy that they've actually built up around what's been going on. And again, this woman demon is like just so clinching for her baby to survive. It's like, I honestly did not notice this until this moment in time, because I'm having a bit of trouble actually doing it from my laptop at the moment. So again, guys, I apologise if it's gonna take me a long time to actually do this review, but it's because my computer just keeps slowing down. I don't know what the problem is here, but anyway, that's besides the point. We get Musica coming in and saying it's all gonna be okay. You can come with me right now, and we get a smile on her face, and it's really nice to see her again after so long, because it's been like about 25 chapters since her last appearance at the beginning of the arc, and it's nice to see that we're actually focusing on her again and actually find out what the whole deal is with her. And again, that's something House of Lights about the Promised Neverland. It's like we don't forget about old characters, they're actually always brought up again in subtle ways. We get the title page which shows not just Musica, but like two other members of her supposed clan. Now, I don't know whether these are members of her clan or just like her associates, but it's pretty cool that we're actually getting to see different members of a different clan and not just like one singular member that has been prevalent throughout the series so far. So we cut back to the present day where we see Norman and Emma and Ray in their little meeting after Norman has found out exactly who Emma and Ray are actually talking about, and it's Musica, and Norman said the evil-blooded girl, and Emma's like confused about this, like, what evil-blooded girl? What are you talking about, Norman? And Emma relays what Norman actually said. It's like, is still alive? What does he mean? And Emma actually begs the question of like, Norman, do you know her, or do you know about her? Like, do you know Musica? Have you come in contact with her? And Norman confirms that he hasn't necessarily come in contact with her, but he knows about her existence. And we finally reveal what Musica actually is. She's this demon that has never eaten humans, and is an extremely special individual that can maintain the form and intelligence of humans without eating them. So again, like I said, this is probably like a certain development that went through with her clan thousands and thousands of years ago. Like, this may not, like, Musica, that might not be the same Musica that we actually saw in the flashback, although it might be the same. We just don't know. We don't know where she came from. No, I'm pretty sure it is actually the same person that they're alluded to here in the title page. But anyway, going on. So she can maintain her form without actually having to actually eat humans, and it's explained that she is part of a special breed. That her date of birth was unknown and place of origin was unknown, and her existence was confirmed on record 700 years ago. Okay, so yeah, it was the same person in the flashback just then. So like she came in. She was properly documented as like this entity that came into existence 700 years ago. But again, they don't know the date of her birth or the origin of her. So it could actually be a case of the Demon King actually sent her or something down to Earth. So sort of like a Jesus reference. Like, I'm sending my only daughter down to Earth to be the catalyst for the sins of all these demons and all these humans. Actually, that may very well be the case, because she's someone that has no date of birth and no place of origin, and she came after the promise, but before the system of the Fathers was established. So again, it might be the god saying, Musica, my only daughter, I sent you down to Earth to die or suffer for the sins of the world, or something like that. But anyway, going on, Norman continues to explain that at first she was a saviour that appeared in a starving town. So yeah, it is pretty much like the story of Jesus here. Like, Musica is like a female Jesus in this point. I can't be the one that's actually noticing this. The only one that's actually noticing this. Like, Musica shows up and is like, it's gonna be okay, I'm gonna help here. And Emma's confused. She's like, a saviour? And Norman explains that she was able to give her power to others with just her blood, not even legs or arms. She didn't even have to offer her brain. Not much was needed. and with just a drop of her blood, a demon was able to obtain the same body composition as her. Okay, so it's sort of similar to like how a vampire does it. How when a vampire bites a human, like the human gains the traits of a vampire, actually becomes a vampire themselves. So again, it's sort of like similar to that in a sense that a drop of her blood actually alters their appearance. It's like, okay, we don't necessarily have to eat humans to maintain our form, but again, the demons still have the drive to be demons and to want to hunt and kill humans. So again, just even having her blood, that doesn't take away their demonistic nature of wanting to hunt humans, but it does give them like a position of power that any demon would want, like a position to survive without having to eat humans, yet still being a dominant species in this world. So no wonder she's so secretive, and how she just wanted to stay away and not interact with humans until she actually met Emma, and actually got a new perspective on humanity in the same way that I think Emma gained a new perspective on the actual demons themselves from her, because again, it always goes back to Musica with Emma and the fact that she's made a friend with the enemy, and it's just that one friend that just changes her whole perspective as a character for Emma herself. Okay guys, it seems like my laptop is actually working properly now in conjunction with actually having to do these reviews. That's something that I just wanted to say. But anyway, continuing on, Emma relays what's actually been said, that demons who drink Musica's blood were able to become humanoid demons. They don't have to eat humans, and Norman continues and confirms that yes, this is the case, and they obtain the ability to increase the same kind of demons with their own blood. So again, it is pretty much like a virus or a vampire. It's like transfer the blood, then transfer it and keep on transferring until you actually have this higher monarchy in the society that you don't necessarily have to keep eating humans in order to maintain your form, but the humans are just so delicious to the demons that they're going to do it. It's sort of like, again, it's sort of like we don't necessarily have to eat meat, but it's so delicious that we're going to continue keep eating it. And this could possibly explain that, like, why so many of the families were able, like how Lewis was probably able to survive without actually having to eat humans all the time and maintain his form. He probably actually managed to get some of Musica's blood, and actually that might be the case of why he was thinking back to Musica and Songju when he was dying, the fact that he actually had some of Musica's blood in him and he was able to maintain his form without actually having to eat humans. But again, I put dying in quotations for Lewis because we never actually saw his body when everyone else was there. When we saw everyone else's body in Goldie Pond, we never actually saw his body. All we saw was his cloak and his hat and the monkey. So again, that's an interesting tidbit that I want to bring up, and the fact that Lewis may actually be around at some point, or he may have actually been absorbed back into the Demon King to be reborn again or something like that. I don't know. Emma continues on and says, demons who drink Musica's blood were also able to create demons that wouldn't degenerate from a lack of eating humans. If so, and Norman cuts her thoughts off by saying, afterward, the communities that in that area shared her power and were able to escape famine and extinction. In time, those stories reached the king and the aristocrats, and they investigated if their powers are real. We can do something about the citizens' famine. It may be useful for the farms in the future. So the royal family in the 5 regiment houses captured all the affected demons. Okay, so it's not necessarily like Demon King actually sent Musica down or something like that, like he created Musica or something like that. No, it's kind of, but it is sort of like very religious type story that's going on here. How, oh, you have this person that can perform these miracles for the demons, like, oh, we're gonna exterminate all of them, like basically to like drive this person out and actually claim this power for ourselves. So again, it's very religious in that regard, and I know that people might actually see it that way, not just me in this regard. Norman concludes by saying they killed and ate anyone who had that blood, and we get this like really creepy image of like these demons with other demon brains like in bowls, like ready to actually eat them. And Emma goes on to say, "What? Why?" And Norman says they feared her power. So, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting more of the fact that the demons would actually want to capture her to claim that power for themselves. Because again, like I said, if they had that power and they were in control, then they could basically be invincible, invincible, whereas humans could still be seen as this weak individuals, and I never would have thought that they would fear her power. But again, that is something that they would that is a possibility because of the fact that us humans and possibly these humans don't like change and don't like things that are different, and it's again a subjugated environment. But continuing on, Emma looks confused as Norman says, "But I see the records say that she was killed and eaten then too, but she survived and is still alive." As he goes on to think, and she is still being pursued by the Royal Five Regiment houses and the Ratari clan. Okay, so this might be explaining again why Lewis was thinking about Songju and Musica. Like he was probably thinking like, I failed to get these two, but I'm sure like people in the Five Regiment houses will be able to get them in the future. As Ray has a flashback to when they actually met Songju and Musica, he goes on to say that means Songju isn't ordinary, or originally a demon that doesn't have to eat humans, but it's a survivor who escaped the degeneration thanks to Musica's blood, and the royal family and the five aristocratic houses are also exceptions, like Musica and Songju. Oh, okay, so yeah, so they did have Musica's blood in her, and they wanted to capture her so that nobody else could, so that basically she couldn't fall into the wrong hands. Like they wanted to, okay, we'll have your blood in us, and then we're just gonna annihilate you there and there. But she somehow escaped along with Songju, and they were just like cutting themselves off. They're not wanting to get involved with anything, and that probably explains why Songju was going to fight that demon that we never saw. We never saw that battle, which I'm kind of disappointed that we never actually saw that battle between Songju and that other demon that was actually chasing after the Gracefield lot when they first escaped the house. I'm kind of disappointed that we never got to saw that. But again, he probably had a different motivation of not just allowing the kids to escape, but also making sure like, okay, I'm gonna reveal myself, but I'm gonna fight this demon so that he has no chance of actually contacting the superiors to let them know about the hierarchies of where me and Musica are in this situation. Norman continues on and says, Gielan knows that, and for that reason too, he wants to kill the royal family and the Five Regiment houses to eat them. That's why I want to send Gielan against the king and the aristocrats to eradicate them all. As Ray is thinking about what Norman said before when they were actually discussing the plans with Norman without the other four of Norman's subordinates there with him. They have another circumstance. That's what he was talking about. But again, Ray is always thinking, he's always in the background, always like plotting and pacing around, and he probably sees something that Emma doesn't actually see at this point, because again, even though Ray is on Emma's side, he's actually thinking more outside the box. He's not being as naive as Emma, because again, one of the main problems with Emma, and one of the things that she's had trouble overcoming, is her naivety. The fact that she just trusts people completely, that she actually knows without actually seeing a deeper side to them that could be used against her if they were to ever break her trust. In the same way that when she found out that Ray was the traitor, how she never considered Ray to be the traitor, and she always thought that he was on her side. But again, that could always come back to bite them in the arse as well, because Emma does not like liars, and she does not like people backstabbing each other, and she was absolutely pissed when she found out that Ray was the traitor, and had been for a really long time. And even Ray brought that up, which I'm waiting for that darker side of Emma to like actually emerge again. But anyway, continuing on, Norman says, so the royal family and the Five Regiment houses are exception, but it won't affect the strategy whatsoever. So again, Norman is still on his plan of like actually wanting to eradicate all the demons and not leave any demons survive again. Once we get to chapter 129, that will be something that will be showing his actual dark side, and I'm really glad that we're actually getting this like some complexity from the three main characters, more so than we have got in the past. And this pretty much leads to Sid's theory of coming true, that Norman is pretty much going to be a bad guy. Like Norman could possibly be the final villain. Who knows? And again, like I said, it could lead to a civil war between Norman and Emma about the different ideologies that they've come to, and the different realizations that they've come to, and the different and the different worlds that they actually want to build with each other, that they actually want to build, to actually have their different ideologies come to fruition. But continuing on, it says there aren't that many in the royal family, and I'll take care of them directly, not by taking away their food supply and waiting for them to degenerate. That's why Ray's concerned about the plan fraying won't be a problem. The biggest danger is, but before no one can actually say anything, Emma actually cuts him off. And Ray could actually see this coming, and which is why it's just like they're just like deadpan inspiration. It's like, okay, Norman, you have to listen to what Emma's got to say now. Emma goes on to say, I still don't get it. Why did the royal family and the aristocrats eat Musica's friends? They could have solved the famine, right? There was nothing to fear. Musica's power could have saved many demons. If they used the blood properly, demons wouldn't have had to worry about degenerating, and they wouldn't need to eat, and they wouldn't even need to eat humans. And they were, and Ray goes on to actually say they were in the way. They were in the way. He's probably talking about the actual demons that were actually saving other demons, because and this might actually be like what Ray is actually saying. I mean, I'm not down to that point yet, but this is probably what he's saying. Like, they were in the way, so if they actually were able to save all the demons, then they could uprise through all the aristocratic families and actually dethrone them. Like, it could lead to basically what's happening now, a civil war with the demons, with a demon uprising, a rebellion of this actual aristocrat that's actually being established, and how they want to overthrow the royal families. And probably that's the reason why they wanted to capture everyone as soon as possible and just eliminate this threat to them. Ray carries on and says, the king and the aristocrats are able to control the supply of human meat through the farms. They can deliberately create this disparity by choosing who, when and how much meat they provide. They can rule the world as they please, and so far the king and the aristocrats, Musica's power could have only become a threat to them because the farms would have no longer been required. And that's actually a great point that Ray actually brings up here, because he goes on to say that's why they captured and killed and kept the power for themselves, if that's the case. Okay, so yeah, that was pretty much what it was like, okay, they wanted to get that power, but they didn't want it also falling into the hands of other people that could actually fuck up the system and fuck up everything that they've built up and actually cause an uprising and a rebellion. So that's why they were just like, okay, we're gonna have the power, but you're not gonna have anything, and we're just gonna strip you from that. So again, like I said, this is again showing like the different layers of the demons. Like, not all the demons are good, and not all the demons are necessarily bad or necessarily evil in a sense. And it's the same thing with pretty much the same thing with the humans here. It's parallel. It's a pretty parallel system, how the humans were sort of in power, and then they got and then the demons sort of like took over, and then we had other humans who thought that they were still in power, but again they had other humans that were basically the humans had their hierarchy as well, and they had the other humans under them, and saying like, look, we hire humans, we control the shots, you control nothing. It's the same thing with the demons and out the king and the aristocrats and everything like that. So again, it's nice to see these parallel sides of parallel situations going on between the two factions. And again, other factions that are actually coming into power, like we've got Norman's faction, but we've also got Emma's faction, and we've also got Gielan's faction and Musica and Songju, and also the farms as well. And again, like Ray said, if the power did get out of hand, then there could have been potential for uprising and war breaking out and everything just falling to shit, and that's why they wanted to keep the power for themselves. Ray goes on to say, furthermore, maybe they create the promise for their own gain to begin with, rather than stopping the conflict with humans, because it's more convenient to have a society where they can manage and regulate human meat. And again, that is always a possibility, because if they had that power, okay, we've got to maintain our form without actually degenerating. How can we do that? We've got this person that can actually give us the power to actually do that, but we don't want them getting in the way or anything, so we're going to kill them right there and then. Or in Musica's case, she was able to escape from that horror that awaited her, and maybe that's what Songju was alluded to way back in the Promised Forest arc. Maybe promise between the humans and the demons. That was just one promise. That was just one promise that was forged. But maybe there were other promises formed in that time between the humans and the demons, and the demon king approved of this after Musica came along. Maybe there was more to this promise than we were led to believe all this time. As Emma refuses to actually believe any of this, like the demons and the humans would be like this just dictatorship. It's basically a dictatorship at this point, that everybody is just subjugated to over various factions in the regard. Norman goes on to say that Emma, this shouldn't be surprising. Everyone acts for their own self-interest. Of course, that's not how every single person is, but that's how the world works. And Norman is raising perfectly valid points here. Is that a lot of the times people in charge can actually act for their own self-interest without worrying about the people that are beneath them, in the sense that, like with politicians, they're only out for themselves half the time and not really caring about the common people. And it's the same way with the aristocratic here, with the king and the 5 royal families, how they're just caring about themselves, just caring about having this system in place and not letting it establish, and they don't have time for like making friends or being nice to people. As long as their establishment is in control, they're going to do whatever it takes to keep it around. And no one brings up like one of the faults of Emma. Not everyone thinks as kind and as selfless as the way you do, Emma. And again, that is a really valid point of Norman's part, that that is just a fault of Emma as a character, and what she actually needs to learn to overcome is that she cannot always be nice in certain situations. But again, it's her positivity and her nice nature that actually drives the story and actually keeps the hope up that there is a way to get out of these situations without shedding any more blood. And despite all of this, Emma does not give up on those mentalities. And I know a lot of people will think of her and think of that as like a negative trait, but again, Luffy has these traits as well. And the fact that he likes to have freedom and like to have fun, and he doesn't really care about that as long as the people around him that he cares about are happy. He is happy, and it's the same thing with Emma here. But again, it's something that she has to overcome in this situation, because they're in a world where demons are out to kill them and humans are out to kill them at this point, and she needs to think of a way of like, okay, how can I keep being kind but also do the necessary evil that I need to do, because she has done evil before. It's like she's not a perfect saint. Like, she went out and willingly, even though it pained her to do this, killed that bird when she actually asked Songju to go out and actually help her to hunt. Norman carries on and says, anyway, the ones I have to be cautious about are these demons, Sonju and Musica. And again, I love, like I said, I love callbacks to previous arcs in the series, and it just expands the world around us and keeps us as connected as possible, because a lot of times you'll have just characters that are just recited to one specific arc and then they're not relevant again, or they're very rarely relevant for the rest of the series. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a prime example of this. A lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Antagonists, once they're defeated, then that's it. Then they're hardly ever going to come back, or when they come back, they're not really going to do anything because their story is over. But in the case of Songju and Musica, their story is not over, because they're pretty much a part of this world, and they're pretty much in Norman and a lot of the demon sides, they're pretty much the problem that the world is in at this moment in time. Particularly Musica, which is why Norman is very adamant about actually having them as a singular threat to the actual system, or a threat to his plan. They're a threat to his plan, because if they can keep making demons that with a drop of their blood that can maintain their form, then they're not going to get out of this situation. Norman is actually seeing that and seeing the wider scope of the situation that Emma, because Musica's her friend, she can't actually see that, and I can't really blame Emma for that, because friends and family are the only thing that Emma has in this world, and and if you take that away from Emma, then you don't know. Then Emma could very much just give up in that regard and just basically conform to what society has dealt her and what the situation has dealt her. But she has friends around her that she feels that she can trust, and feels like she can actually have a deeper bond with, but Norman just doesn't actually see that. Even though Musica is Emma's friend, he sees her as a threat, and I'm really hoping that this actually comes into play later on in the series. But again, Norman goes on to say, under watchful eyes of the king and aristocrats, they probably aren't going anywhere near the demon towns, but they have the power to return degenerated demons back into human forms. And again, this is a point that, again, like I said, Norman sees them both as a threat because of this power to actually turn degenerated demons back into a human form, and as well as giving them the blood to actually maintain their form. So again, it's a complete detriment to his plan, and Emma just sees, like, I feel like at this point she can actually see, like, just the evil intention of Norman, that he's actually going to go out and kill some of her friends that she's actually built up a strong bond with, even though Songju isn't necessarily the saint that he presented himself to be, as we found out at the end of the Promised Forest arc. But anyway, continuing on, what Norman says, what would they do if they found out about our rebellion? It'd also be troublesome for us if they get caught by the Ratari clan. They're an uncertainty and a dangerous element for the safety of us children. And again, that is a perfectly valid point on Norman's part. The fact that their blood can actually create humanoid demons, and I wouldn't be surprised if it can actually boost their intelligence at certain points, and again, to start having them going out and hunting the cattle children. But Emma is not listening to any of this, and she's more concerned about what Norman is actually going to say next, which is we must find and kill them. At that point, Emma just actually snaps, because Emma just doesn't want any more killing, and she wants her friends to survive in a world where they don't have to be here, but at the same time they don't have to kill as well. And she actually makes a protest here. She goes, "Wait, Sonju and Musica are good. They're my friends. They saved our lives. I don't want to kill them." And again, that's perfectly valid on Emma's part. Like, she owes her life to Sonju and Musica, because if they weren't there when those demons go, they would have all been dead. It would have been as simple as that. They would have all been dead without Songju and Musica at this point. And Norman actually tries to get through to Emma, and you can see, like, the depression on his face, the fact that I've done everything I can to make her see sense, but she's not going to see sense here, and I just have to make do with what I've got here. And like this difference of opinion about the situation of what to do with Sonju and Musica could very well lead to a civil war, in the same way that in Captain America Civil War, the situation with Bucky led to Iron Man and Captain America basically having a falling out at this regard. It is pretty much the same thing now. Emma's protecting a couple of friends that she owes her life to, but Norman is seeing the bigger picture of the fact that if they're still alive, then they could create more humanoid demons, and then and they could actually enslave those cow children or even kill us. And again, that's different ideologies and different conflicting opinions is going to drive them apart. But continuing on, Norman says, "But they're demons too. Do you think they'll just sit and watch as we annihilate the demons? Do you think that they'll forgive that?" And Emma goes on to actually protest, and that's why they shouldn't annihilate them. And she goes on to say, "Norman, I don't want to eradicate any of the demons, because again, she's seen the demons as an actual race that is intelligent, way more intelligent than some humans, possibly in the same way that Emma and Norman and Ray, they're like more intelligent than them, but they've actually made their own society, and they're like, look, we've been out in the world, we've seen it, what these demons are like, and not all of them are out to kill us family. They just want to eat our meat, but they're not going out hunting us. They're just trying to live their lives and trying to have a family themselves. They're just trying to survive in the sense that we're trying to survive, and not all of them are going out and killing us and eating us as freely as the hierarchies are. Now, the hierarchies, I feel like Emma can actually see where Norman is coming from, but in terms of just wiping out all the society, Emma does not want that. Emma carries on and says, that's what I came to talk about. It's possible, right, with Musica's blood. No, even if we don't look for Musica, we can use the demons or aristocrats' blood to turn all demons into those that don't have to eat humans, right? Then we don't have to fight, and there's no reason for us to be in conflict, as long as we take down the royal family and the aristocrats from their position of power. And again, I can see where Emma's actually coming from here. If you remove them from power, then there is a chance for them to actually just live without having to eat humans, and the same time possibly in a very minimalistic way, having demons and humans coexisting between each other, or just the humans escaping into the human world. Although I've brought up our problems with that before, as I think in this chapter that's where they're actually going to go forward and actually bring those points up. As Norman goes on to say, it's no use, Emma. Even if there's no need, if they want to eat us, they'll come for it. The king aristocrats have been doing that for the last 700 years after all. The same with Gleelan, and humans are no different either. If your favourite food tells you don't eat me, can you say okay and refrain from eating it? And oh boy, that's actually that I feel that that's a pretty vegan response to the situation. I feel like that's going to be the new vegan slogan if any vegan actually comes across this series, and they see, if your favourite food tells you don't eat me, can you say okay and refraining from eating it? Or maybe that, but that could be applied to like meat eaters as well, with like carrots saying, with like them asking figures like, if your favourite food, like a carrot, says don't eat me, can you refrain from eating it? And I really like how the moral dilemmas of not just Emma but also of us as humans, as a species, is actually being brought up here. As Norman goes on to say, maybe you would be able to, but could you force your siblings to do the same? Do you think all the demons would feel empathy towards us and suppress their appetite? And again, Norman does have a point here. Norman has a very good point here, and Emma, I don't know how Emma's gonna like actually respond to this. I mean, I know how she's gonna respond to this, but I don't feel like she really has an answer at this point, and I feel like it's gonna take a while for her to actually come up with an answer. But anyway, continuing on. She goes on. Norman goes on to say, to us, mere food, and Emma responds with, then let's escape into human world. Which again, that proves that Emma does not have an answer to this, and she's like, let's just escape into human world. Let's find the 7 walls, create a new promise, make it so that demons won't pursue us, then escape to the human world. We'll take away the humans from the demons, but it's way better than annihilating them. But again, Emma, that's still annihilating them. Either way you look at it, it's still annihilating them. And yeah, I'm not defending you at this point, Emma, because you're still... Yeah, because it's going to be impossible for every single demon to actually get that blood of Musica before they're actually degenerating. And again, demons could probably eat their own kind, and that's how they get their meat. But excuse me. But again, that's still annihilating them, Emma, and I know you like to think of it as a different way, but yeah, I'm not defending you in this part. Norman goes on to say to Emma that even though we don't know that the human world is safe and that they'll accept us, Emma, life isn't so easy that you can have everything you want. I can say this for sure, if we don't annihilate the demons, then there's no future where our family can live in happiness. And we see, off to the side, we see Ray thinking, and Emma just like getting to be on the verge of tears, and that's where the chapter ends. So a really good chapter. Like I love the dilemma that's actually brought up here of like what Emma and Norman's Norman's resolves and opinions are, and how it's possibly leading to Promised Neverland civil war on not just the demons but also on the human side. Now I'm just going to go and quickly get a drink before we continue with chapter 128. Alright, to continue on, this is chapter 128 titled I've Decided. This is obviously a reference to Norman and what he's decided on, what's going on with the situation at hand between Emma and the demons and Gleelan and the actual aristocrat and the royal families. And continuing on, we get a flashback from Norman's perspective on his family, and it's like, and him going on saying, I also want to create a future where my family and friends and all the children can live happily. That's why I fought hard. what's the best way to achieve that. But obviously Norman has not been through the experiences that Emma and Ray have been through, and again I would love to know what would have happened if Ray was the one that shipped out and Norman was the one who actually went along with Emma to the Promised Forest, met Sandra Musica and all of that, and actually had a new perspective, because that would have been interesting for his character's development to see him from a new lens. But continuing on, Norman continues on from what he was saying at the end of the last chapter, which, Emma, life isn't so easy that you can have everything you want. I can say this for sure, if we don't annihilate the demons, there'll be never a future where our family can live in happiness. And we get the title page, which is actually a great contrast, as it shows Norman studying, but also figuring out a way to actually annihilate these whole facilities. It's basically Norman back in his room and studying and doing all these tests for the Retire camp, for Peace of Retire. Whilst also below we get Emma, Ray and the kids being happy, and it's a perfect contrast and a perfect understanding of how out of the loop Norman is, how he cannot see a world where even if the demons are still alive, our family cannot be happy. But again, like I said, he's not been with them for 2 years, and he's not seen so they've had some sadness along the way. They've had a lot of happiness and they've had a lot of happy memories, and I've been able to actually survive and be happy without actually having to worry about the demons for the most part. I mean, they still have to have had worried about the demons, and that's never lost them, but they've at least still managed to maintain some happiness on the outside, whereas Norman has always just seen it as like, there's never going to be happiness, we have to get rid of this, but Emma and Ray are like, no, we can have happiness with these demons around. As Norman and Emma stare each other down and Ray's just off to the side, just observing and thinking, Emma goes on to say he is right and Norman is right, and the annihilation of the demons is the safest possibility to ensure that our family is safe and the children are all safe. But she thinks the word "but" before going on to say, you're right, but you're only correct in terms of probability. And I really like that, and I really like how Emma is just showing Norman, it's like, no, I have a voice here and you're going to listen to it, Norman. And she goes on to say, it's true that if you go by the numbers, that's the correct way, but what does it mean to be correct, to be certain, to be effective? I don't know, but it shouldn't just be that. I don't think it's right to massacre innocent children just because they're the enemy. And again, Emma is completely right here. Emma is actually right. Like, even though, like, a perfect example of this is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Even though the Fire Nation were the enemies of the entire world, there were still children in that world. That were just innocent civilians living their lives, having nothing to do with like the whole military process, and they just have their lives. And it's same in all parts of the world. Like, even though North Korea is pretty much an enemy of the world, there's still innocent children in there, and it's not right for us to go in and like eradicate them all just because of the way they were born, essentially. In the same way that it's not right here for Norman to just condemn all demons, even the children, just because they're demons. And Emma is completely in the right here, and it's nice that we're actually getting problems of Norman's character, in the sense that he always thinks by the books, but he can't. But sometimes he just can't see that, and even though he can see the bigger picture sometimes about what could possibly be the safest position, he can't see it from all possibilities, not just from one angle. He has to see it from other angles, and the fact that he can't see that is a real crux on his character that he has to overcome. And Emma continues going on to say, eradicating is going too far, killing is is heavy. We don't have to kill them all. In fact, there's a solution where we don't have to. We don't know if the human world is safe and they'll accept us. You're right about that too. But it's absolutely not. But it's not absolutely impossible. Even if it is dangerous, there's a small chance that both sides can survive. Let's take that chance to go with it. And again, Emma is completely right here. Like, Norman's just thinking like hyperbole, what could actually happen, rather than like, okay, yes, there's a possibility that could happen, but there's also the possibility that it can't, and we've just got to take that risk. And again, this separates Norman from where he was at the beginning of the series to where he is now, in the sense that he could not think of other possibilities of what could happen, or no, actually, in the beginning of the series, he was able to think of other possibilities, but now that he has actually been shipped out and just seen it like as a checkmate situation for 2 years, he can't see in that, right? And he's locked in this mindset without actually opening his ideas out. And I feel like Emma needs to be the one to be there to actually bring him back down to reality and be like, look, not everything is black and white, Nolan. You're thinking black and white, and we need to actually think of a way to actually make sure that both species can survive without actually killing each other, even though it's an impossible task, and even though Norman is in the right about some things, Emma is totally in the right about other things, and they need to come to a compromise here, and Norman is not actually seeing that, and I think Ray is actually seeing that Norman is not actually seeing this as well. As Emma goes on to say, we believe like that before, and we're here now. If we could choose our paths based only on probability, we wouldn't have escaped. We would have waited for death at the house, just like Mama told us, and our siblings wouldn't be here. I don't want to kill the demons. At least if it's a future where I have to kill my friends like Musaka, I don't think I would have been able to smile anymore. And that's a real that says more volumes about her character, Emma's character, than any other in the series. And the fact that if she has to be in a world where she has to kill people that she's made strong bonds with, then that's not gonna fly, and she would never be happy. And Norman is someone that always wants to make Emma happy, and the fact that he's actually thinking of a possibility of a situation where it will make her very unhappy to the point that she wouldn't be able to smile again. I don't think Norman would be able to live with that, and Emma most certainly wouldn't be able to live with that. As Norman and Emma stare down each other once again, Norman says, so the part you want to avoid is the eradication, and Emma confirms that this is the case, but Norman goes on to say, but what about my plan? I formed an alliance with Gillen. I can't go back on it now. And Emma says that she knows about this and she's okay up to where you defeat the king and the aristocrats and release the release of the farms. But she doesn't want Norman to kill to kill the king and the aristocrats right then. She wants to use their blood to increase the number of demons so that they don't have to eat humans, and they'll go to the Seven Wars and create new problems with the Demon King and create a route to escape to the human world. And once we change all the demons into beings who won't degenerate and destroy all the farms, then they can go to the human world with all the children. And again, that's a very solid plan on Emma's part, because if they're able to create more more demons with the blood of Sondra and Musica, then they can have a society where they can actually eat demon meat and just keep eating demon meat. And whoa, Emma turning demons into cannibals. That's pretty extreme on Emma's part, but again, that's the only way at this point that Emma can actually see that both societies surviving and flourishing without the need to actually shed more bloodshed on either side's part. And she's fine with the Demon King and with the Demon King or whatever, the aristocratic family and the 5 royal noble families that actually being killed, and actually giving the chance of demons to actually be a free species to do whatever they want, and to actually survive without actually being degenerated to humans, whilst they can actually go into the human world and start a new life together, which was the plan from the very beginning, to get out of demon world and to go into human world. But Norman brushes all this off and says that's a fairy tale, and I'm really interested to see what Norman says about this, as he goes on to say, so let's assume the human world is safe to go, but everything about the Seven Walls is uncertain. Beyond the Seven Walls is the Demon King, and I don't know why they've kept this going for so long, like this thing of like not finding out what the Demon King's name is, but maybe we'll find out like at the tail end of the final arc. Norman goes on to say that he stands above all demons. The Seven Wars, that place doesn't exist anywhere on here. It's folklore with no proof of records about it, even at the Vitari clan. It's full of unknowns. James Vitari couldn't get there. No place exists, but you want to base your plan on it. And this is where Emma gives Norman like the biggest, I've got one over on you, Norman. And she says, I know where it is. And Norman's expression is just pure gold. Just like, huh? It's like, and you can just see like the determined look on Emma's face, which means that she's probably thought about this ever since Norman first came out and she found out like what Norman was actually planning on everything, she's probably thought all this through and probably come to a resolve and actually had this whole conversation thought out in her head, calculated about what all possibilities could go and how she's going to come to the conclusions of them. And with her determined look, she says, "We figured out how to get to the Seven Walls in the past year and a half. We even gathered what's necessary. As long as the conditions are right, we can go anytime." And again, Norman's expression is like, "You figured it out?" Showing that, like, it's like a look of like, "Oh my, Emma got one over on me for once. I have nothing that can come back from here." And Emma continues on to say, "But there's also a lot of stuff we don't know. Can we really go? What would be there when we go? Even if we get there, can we make a new promise?" And yeah, that's kind of a possibility, because I feel like at some point, if they did go to the Seven Walls, then the Demon King would be like, "I'm not going to make a new promise and you're all going to die," or something like that. That's one possibility where it could go down, and that would really shatter Emma and just bring her to a breaking point at that point. But Emma goes on to say, just like you said, there are so many things we don't know about the Seven Walls. If you say that I can't have it my way unless we know more, then I'll go and find out. And this causes Norman to actually just be like confused about what she's actually saying, as Emma gets more and more desperate of like just pleading to Norman, like, "Just listen to me, just let me have my plan. You can have your plan, but let me have my plan, let me have my say here." And I'm really glad that Emma's coming back into her own, because for the past few chapters it's kind of like the kids have actually just been taken to Norman like a god and just been viewing him as a god and not really focusing on Emma, despite the fact that she's kind of been the leader for the past 2 years. And now that Norman's back in the light, "Oh great, Norman's here, he's going to solve all our problems," and Emma, and to a lesser extent Ray, has kind of like been thrown onto the backside, and they're like, "No, we need to actually prove ourselves that we are going to do this, and we're going to go with our plans, and we have our plans, and we have our say, and we're not going to let you just take over everything, Norman." She goes on to say, "Yeah, I'll go and find everything, so if I make a new promise and I can come back, you'll reconsider the annihilation." Yeah, Emma. Norman's not going to agree to that. Even after all of this, Norman is still not going to agree to that, because he's dead set on this annihilation of everything. As Norman basically confirms what I've just said. "Wait, what? I don't agree with that. And what do you mean by if you can come back?" As Ray adds to the conversation, says, "Right now there are 2 risks that we know of. We know where the entrance is, but not the exit. And it seems that anyone who goes there usually can't come back." And this just makes Norman just absolutely mad. He's like, "What? What the heck? That's too risky. If you go, you'll annihilate. If you don't go, as Emma goes on to say, but if you don't go, yeah. But if I don't go, you'll annihilate the demons, right? I don't want that." As Norman tries to like get her to see sense, she's like, "Yeah, but," and Emma's like, just has like just brilliant confidence on her face after just telling Norman what her plan is. Like, "Don't worry, it's fine. I was planning to go anyway." And Norman just is like absolutely angry at her. It's like, "It's not fine at all, Emma. Are you crazy? There's so many possibilities that this could go wrong and it could go south really fast. And what are you gonna do then, Emma? What are you actually going to do then?" As Emma goes on to say that the first head of the Tire Clan was able to return 1,000 years ago. There's a way to come back for sure. I'll find it. And also, I'm the one who doesn't want the demons eradicated, so I should be the one to take on this simple burden. And and this just makes Norman think, what is she saying? What if? Simple. Is it simple? And again, it really isn't simple, because there's so many possibilities that this plan could go around. Like, she could get there, try to force the promise to the Demon King, and it's just like, no. And then what did he go from there? What did he do from there? And I'm really interested to find out what all that is going to be about. As Norman has heard all of this and taken it all into his brain, Emma goes on to say, "Norman, you have so much on your shoulders, also by yourself, all by yourself, as if you were a god. Listen, Norman, you don't have to be a god." And we just get this really tender moment of Emma just hugging Norman, and her going, tell me the truth. Is it tough? Or do you truly want to annihilate demons? Do you also feel better when you kill demons? Please tell us everything too. I don't want you to go far away, bearing everything on your own again." And we just get the flashback that just like actually Emma could have done so much more back in Gracefield House, and even though Norman took it as a sense like, if one of us is going to have to die, I'm going to have to die in order to give you guys a chance to escape and actually bring this plan to fruition. When they're actually supposed to be a team, they were supposed to be a team. They were supposed to do everything together, and it shouldn't have been a case of like, if one of them died, then that's it. I have to be the one to die in order for you guys to survive. And Emma does not want that anymore, because she doesn't see Norman as a god at any point. She's always seen him as one of them, but it's the way his reputation has been built up at this point. He's kind of fallen into that position of having to become a god, even though at the beginning I don't think he actually necessarily wants to be, but because of so much planning and so much build up, and because of what Lombardy did to him and how much they improved his intelligence to the point where he could actually surpass people in the facilities despite being only 12, 13 years old at the time. He felt like, okay, I'm responsible for these people. I've got them out of here. I've got to maintain this reputation. It's down to me to come up with these plans to actually get us all out of these situations. I can't be focusing on what's going to happen to my conscience if I start killing demons. And if I start killing demons and start feeling guilty about it, then it's not going to bode well for me. So I just have to remove myself from all humanity and just become the god figure that everybody looks up to me. But Emma just says like, no, you are not a god. You are one of us. You're Norman. You're my brother. You're my adopted brother. You're Ray's adopted brother. You're everybody's adopted brother. You don't have to be a god, and you don't have to burden all the responsibilities of actually being a god to these people. You just have to be a leader, as Emma is in this situation. Like, she's trying to be a leader, and she's trying to look at the best possibilities to get out of situations without actually having to do all the killing, even though deep down she knows that's impossible. But she's trying to do it in a positive light to make it seem less of a burden on their part, and think like it was a necessary thing for them to actually do. As Norman turns to Ray doesn't say anything, but you can tell he's just thinking like, Norman, I know what you're gonna say, and I know you're just saying this to make Emma happy, but at the end of the day, if you say this, then it is going to come back to bite you in the arse if Emma finds out what's actually happened, and you're not going to be happy about it. And again, I think Ray can actually see like, this is not going to bode well. Even though Emma is saying like, don't be a god, he knows that that Norman is still going to be a god, and Ray, even though he wants to say something, he feels like it's best for him to not actually say anything and to not make things as complicated as they already are. As Norman goes on to think, and just pushes her away and says, relax, I'm not going to go anywhere anymore. And I feel like also Ray was thinking as well, like, you put Emma in this like vulnerable situation before, and if you do this again, you know what's going to happen. You know what happened to me when it turned out I was the spy. You know how pissed off Emma is. Imagine what she's going to do when she finds out that you are going to go back on her promise, and you just putting on a brave face to make her happy. Imagine what that's going to be like when Emma finds out that was just a whole hoax. And I can only imagine what's that going to be feeling like. Emma's going to be absolutely so betrayed that she's not going to know who to trust at that point. Like, she's going to probably come back from finding out the promise, from making a new promise, and then find out that all the demons are most of the demons are annihilated, and Emma's going to be like, Norman, I thought you said that this wasn't going to happen until I actually got back from making a promise. And Norman was like, I couldn't take that risk, Emma. And you know as well as I do that I was going to go through with this. And again, I feel like that's going to make Emma snap and just be like, she's just going to break down at that point. Norman goes on to say, I understand how you feel, but I can't change how I feel either. I have no intention of cancelling my plans. I won't delay it either or wait. If you really want to stop the annihilation and are leaving to do so, then you have to return before I make them kill the royal family and 5 regiment houses. I'm not going to promise to stop the annihilation. I'll think about it when you return. As Emma pretty much feels like this is as good enough as an answer she's going to get at this point. But again, I feel like people have been saying it, particularly when we get to chapter 129, Norman is probably just putting on a brave face and probably lying to them just to save his own hide at this point. And I feel like some of Peter Atari's influence has kind of rubbed off on Norman and kind of made him feel a little bit more colder. And it's great to see like this different contrast of like Ray and Norman, how Norman has sort of like picked up the idea of the personality and the ideology of Ray from when he was in Grace Fieldhouse, whereas Ray has picked up some of that Norman and Emma Five and actually being much more of a confidant than Norman has actually been in this situation. Emma, like I said, just views this as a okay, this is good enough for this is good enough for me. And Norman turns to Ray and Ray's like, yeah, I'll be going too. Leave it to me. But again, Ray can probably see what Norman is actually probably thinking, and he's probably thinking like, Norman, don't do what I think you're gonna do. But if you do, then don't come crying to me. That's basically what Ray was probably thinking throughout that whole exchange between Norman and Emma. As Norman says, make sure you both come back safely, and they both agree to this. And they have a tender moment, but I feel like this is the last tender moment they're actually gonna have, because I feel like once they get back there, it's just gonna be all out chaos, and Emma's gonna be like, right, if that's the way you've got to be, then that's the way I've got to be. I've got to fight with some of the demons because I don't believe in what you're saying anymore, Norman. As they leave Norman, Emma says to Ray that I've decided, I know now what I have to do, and I won't waver anymore. As Norman just looks at his hand, and it's just like somewhere by him, and he's probably thinking like, I did all I could, but it's not going to change my plans, Emma. I'm going to go through with it, and I want you to remember me as someone who actually had a smile on my face, not as someone who's a bloodthirsty monster. But again, that's probably what Norman is actually thinking. Like, he's got to be a bloodthirsty monster. He's got to be a god, whether it be a god of good and a god of evil. And I really like that complexity of Norman's character, how he wants to do good, but he also wants to save his family by any means necessary, even if it does go against what Emma's beliefs are and what she actually views the demons as like a species all her own. Norman cannot see that, and he will do whatever it takes to save the families, whether it be doing it for good or evil. That's up to Emma's interpretation. If she can't accept that, then they're just gonna have to be odds at each other, and again lead to a civil war. But continuing on, Emma says, I won't let him commit genocide. We'll find another way. I'm never going to let Norman be on his own again. As Ray goes, got it. And that's where the chapter ends. So again, another really good chapter, another really strong showing of the different ideologies and different conflicts that Emma and Norman actually have. Wasn't as long to get through this chapter as it was the last one, and maybe that's because I don't know why that is. It feels like every time I do like these multiple chapters, I feel like the first chapter takes long, and then the second and third chapter, or the chapters after that, take less long. Maybe that's because I'm on a roll of doing things and not actually going into every single little detail. But again, Ray's probably thinking that Norman's not going to listen to Emma, and he will commit genocide, and we have to do this as quickly as possible. And I feel like once Emma gets back and she finds out what Norman's actually done, that's it. Their relationship is probably going to be broken at that point. But anyway, guys, let's continue on with chapter 129. Alright, so this week chapter 129, titled Something I Should Carry. Obviously, this is a reference to Norman and the burden that he has to carry on his shoulders now that he's made his decision about what his role in the world is going to be from this moment forward. So the chapter opens up with Norman in very much distress about his meeting with Emma and Ray, about how even though he said to Emma, my plans are not going to be thwarted, Emma. I don't care what you say. I don't care what Ray says. I am still sticking to my plans and my ideals, and I'm not going to let anybody destroy them. And he's actually given Emma an ultimatum, like, you've got to come and you've got to go and make that promise, but I'm still going to annihilate the families, and you've got to get back before I annihilate the families. But again, I feel like this point, it's like he feels guilty for actually lying to them, and he knows that he's lied to them, and he knows that no matter what, he's still going to annihilate them. It doesn't matter how long they take, it's still going to be annihilated, and he's worried about what the ramifications are going to be for that. As we get the flashbacks of Norman thinking about when he first left the orphanage. It doesn't matter what you tell me. I've already made up my mind. I can't afford to make any mistakes. I won't let anyone else die. And again, he's probably had that mentality of like, I'm not gonna let anyone else die for the last 2 years, and he's gonna go through and he's going to go through with this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. He doesn't care about that. As long as he makes the family safe, he's going to do whatever he needs to make them safe. And again, this goes back to the idea of Sydney, my friend Sydney, thinking that Norman is going to be the bad guy, and it's pretty much confirmed here that he's not necessarily a good guy, but he's pretty much leaning towards being a bad guy. And the ending panel of this chapter pretty much cements that set in stone. We get the title page, which shows just shows many different bodies just going into like this facility. And again, it might be Lombardy because they might be the bodies that were going into a vegetarian state that could not survive without being attached to those devices. And Norman gave them like a mercy kill, and it's pretty creepy and pretty inventive, and it's really disturbing to see like just human figures like that just in that desolate facility. And we see 2 demons, but we also see one scientist. Now that may be Norman, that may not be. No, there's actually three demons, and one scientist which may or may not be Norman. We don't actually know, but yeah, it's pretty cool and creepy title page that we get there. We cut to Norman descending some stairs with Sassy. Of course, every single person that has good intentions and bad intentions has to have a secret dungeon. And Norman is the one that got that burden in this series, because again, he's going to be a god in whatever capacity people want to perceive him as at this point, whether it be a good god or a bad god. And as he goes into this giant room, we see Cecil, Barbara, and Vincent just chilling out, and Cecil was like, "Yo, boss," and Norman's like, I was looking for you guys." As we see an image of just like this big massive demon, just like spikes piercing, and it's like it's like a monster that's just like chained up, and that's pretty representative of what they actually think of these demons. Like, they're monsters that just been wiping out us humans. We don't want any of that anymore, and they need to suffer like how we have been suffering. And this is just like that ultimate fantasy coming to life here. And yeah, seeing this creature just like chain up and spiked pose, it's pretty satisfying on one side, but at the same time, it's like it's still a creature that has feelings, and it's like really, do you think you're any better for doing to this creature what the demons have been doing to you? You really have to think about these questions. That's what this series actually does. It makes you think about these questions. Like, if you were in this situation and you had a power over these creatures that have been suppressing your own species, how far would you actually go in this situation? And I'm really glad that they're just actually pushing this motive of like, the whole situation is great. Not all good guys, not one side is good guys, not one side is bad guys. There's lots of shades of grey at this point. And this picture of Norman just being like, not caring about this creature that's been chained up and in this horrific state, that's a perfect example of just hammering in the greyness of this world. Norman continues on and says, "It's been a while since I've come here." As Cecil goes, "I came here quite a bit myself." And Barbara goes, it always manages to calm me down. And I can see that, because when she was up there just conversing with Emma, just seeing how Emma viewed the demons as people in her eyes, when to her they're just creatures, they're just beasts and animals. They don't have feelings, they can't feel, they deserve to be eradicated. I feel like just seeing this demon, this creature in this position of powerlessness, just like, that's much more better. How do you like it? How do you, not so nice when you're on the receiving end of all the pain and torture. I feel like that just makes her just feel much more relaxed about certain situations, and just makes her much more happier than what she was when she was up there just getting all crazy with Norman. And and with Emma. And like I said, these characters, they just have so much complexity about them, but also as well but also as well we can see them actually reaching a breaking point, actually getting killed without actually seeing the possibility of what Emma wanted of her world. And I could see them just very well, Norman just actually not caring about their sacrifice, or maybe he feels like he does care about them, but at some point it'll be like it's their own stupid fault for not seeing the big picture or something like that. But no, their own hatred is going to come back to bite them in the arse. That's the thing I'm trying to get across here. As Cecil thinks to himself, he turns to Norman and says, what did they want to talk about? Obviously referring to Emma and Ray. And Norman confirms to say that they wanted to talk about various things. Them not wanting to let demons go extinct being one of them. And this just gets everyone thinking, but Barbara just has the look of absolute pissed off at this point, and she's like, so they really, before Vincent goes on to say, so what happens now, boss? As Norman's like, okay, don't be impatient, guys. There'll be no change to the plan, and also the evil blood maiden is alive, and this just gets them. All freaking out. It's like, what, the evil blood maiden is still alive? Isn't that bad? And Norman's like, I thought a bit about it. Leave this to me. It seems that she's friends with Emma and her acquaintances, obviously referring to the Grand Valley and what's the other farm called? The other farm, the Glory Bell, the Grand Valley and Glory Bell group, and how he has no connection. He has no connection to those people whatsoever. Although no, when Norman says her acquaintances, that might actually be referring to the other Gracefield house kids. And if that's the case, that is actually the case, that he's saying that because he doesn't know that the Grand Valley or Glory Bell kids actually met Sondra and Musica, but he probably lumping them all in together. But again, Gracefield House, and he doesn't mention like Emma and my other siblings from Gracefield House and their acquaintances or something like that. No, it just says Emma and her acquaintances. So again, this probably means that Norman just doesn't have a connection anymore to the other Gracefield House kids, and he only thinks that the most important people are Ray and Emma. So, well, that's kind of a dick move on Norman's part. As everyone is freaking out and Cecil goes, friends with that cursed blood, Vincent says this could be either very good or very bad given the circumstances. And again, he has a very good point in that regard, because based on what has been said, it could either lead to more humans getting sacrificed if the blood actually got out, but at the same time it could lead to a good situation, and he actually sees the possibilities of either Norman or Emma's plans coming into fruition. That's either good or bad depending on the circumstances. But of course, Barbara doesn't see it that way. She just, so that's why because she really doesn't want to kill the demons. Why? Friends with the demons, just what the hell is that? And we get a flashback from Barbara's part. She's absolutely pissed off at this point that even friendship with a demon has actually been brought into the situation, and you just see like just the enragedness on Barbara's face. It's like, oh, bitches be crazy. Once again, she's back. The psychotic bitch of a character is back. But again, like I said, I can't really blame her for thinking that, because she's been through so much torment because of these demons, and she's been through so much facility and been basically experimented on, and had just her brain just messed up, and just thought like, all demons are bad. We've got to exterminate all the demons. I don't care. And they're gonna kill us. Okay, we're gonna kill them. We're gonna eat their flesh and see how they like being eaten for a change. And of course, we get the flashback which shows we get a flashback which is shows her having a good life. And like I said, just this flashback, it's just enough to show us how detriment this system is in place, and how much it needs to stop, because this system in place, it could turn just like these children who have all the future ahead of them, like just this bright, colourful world ahead of them, and what they want to go and do with their life, into just like a rude wake up call, and just a shocking, surprising, just like horror nightmare that they've actually gone to. It's like going from high to low to absolute hell in the span of just like 10 years or something on their part. And I can't really blame Barbara for thinking this way, but at the same time, that hatred will come back to bite her in the arse eventually. But again, like I said, this flashback just says so much about her character and about her motivation for her hatred, and it's easy to see why she came to this conclusion in the end. As Barbara thinks about her flashback and how much it's messed her up, she goes on to say, demons aren't like that. There's just no way right now. Ah, damn it! Oh, it's here. My head is splitting open. As Vincent's like, Barbara, and Cecil's like, she's having she's having the usual spasms. Damn it! And they go on to say the intervals between them have been getting less and less within the last few days. Not just her, but for all of us. And this just like gets Norman actually really depressed about what's actually been going on between them, because again, it's just hearing certain words, like just words or just one sentence about what's been going on and what other people are viewing the demons, that was enough to send Barbara into an absolute panic attack and actually have a flashback of the situation and actually be completely traumatized and be like, no, there's no way demons can be like that. They're not good. They're all evil. Just messes with her brain. I feel like this is the first time in her life that she's seen everything from a different point of view, and her brain just cannot comprehend it based on the traumatic experience that she has actually been through and the experiments that the demons have put from her, and the post-traumatic stress disorder of finding out like all this happiness, it's a lie, it's a hoax. And that is absolutely something that is completely dark, and we have to remember of that fact that all this is a hoax, and just the post-traumatic stress level is on an insane level for not just Barbara but for all of them. The fact that they've met Emma and they've got a new perspective of the demons, and they just can't handle that, and their brains are just like exploding because of it. As they find the medicine for Barbara to actually get her to calm down, they force her to take it, and they go on to say the amount of medicine needed has increased, and it's not just the frequency that's getting worse, but the symptoms too. We very well could have very little time left, and I feel like if they run out of medicine and they're just have these moments of tense where they realise like, oh, demons can be nice, like that's just gonna explode their brains, and it's gonna basically turn them into berserker creatures where they will have to be killed to calm them down. And maybe they might have demon blood in them as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out like they actually have some demon blood that was implanted into them in Lombardy that just made them feel more demonized and feel more demonic and feel like they don't need to listen to reason, and they just have to kill right here, right now, without listening to any form of reasoning. And they go on to say, see, this is what the demons are. We're just livestock, so to them it's only natural. That's why this is what demons are to us, cattle, damn it. And you just see Barbara just like, if only demons didn't exist. And yes, if only demons didn't exist, then the world would be a happier place. The world wouldn't be split up. But what can you do in this situation? And I really like just like the level of intensity that comes from Barbara's character in this chapter, because before I just saw her as like this cold-hearted bitch, just couldn't see a different point of view. But after seeing just what she's been through, and just like how she was very bright and cheerful, and that just all just like faded away, and she just couldn't think of any happy thought. She could only think of just like revenge and blood. It poisoned her mind and made her feel less human as it went along. And it's just gone worse with Emma saying like, no, we are friends with these demons, and we don't want them to be extinct. As Barbara is able to calm down thanks to the medicine, Cecil goes on to say, hey boss, when you were gone, we talked with Emma and Ray, and Norman gives off a look that's like, and what did they say? Was everything all right? Are you guys all right? They're nice kids, but that sweet talk they spewed out disgusts me. They're nice people. They're really nice people. But even so, you're on our side, right, boss? And again, I feel like they actually saw this as a way of like of a way of like, no, you're not going to take James Vitale, our boss, Norman, William Minerva, whatever you want to call him. You're not going to take our boss away from us. He's done so much for us, and you're not going to make him feel like anything less than a god. And I feel like that's what they saw. That's what they saw in the words that Emma and Ray were spewing out. And again, like I said, they've not been in the situation that Emma and Ray have, so they don't have any other perspective other than the fact that they've been tormented, and they've had just like their entire, basically their humanity stripped from them at this point, to the point that they just can't feel any form of happiness. And this is probably like the path of Spyro that could have. That this is like a more extreme version of what Hugo actually went through, of the fact that he lost everything and he was prepared to commit suicide, but the fact that they not only lost everything, they also lost themselves to the demons from the experiments that they actually went through, to the point that they cannot, no matter what anything goes through, they just cannot have any more happy thoughts. And that's really depressing on that part. And they've only been in the series for the past 15, 16 chapters, but they've gotten so much character development, and you can see their point of views of where they've actually come from, that they've really come out of their own and really established themselves as very complex individuals that want that, even though they can see okay, these kids are nice, but they're just too naive, they don't know enough about the world, they're just spewing crap, and we have our boss here, and you're not going to take him away from us. We're going to do everything in our power to keep him as he is, and to not make him stray away from the path of actually exterminating these demons. As Cecil continues on and says, "You're the boss, aren't you? Losing your way isn't something you can do right now." Again, emphasizing the fact that he thought that Emma and Ray were actually going to sway Norman away from the path of what he's actually built up, and what he's actually brought, and what reputation he's actually perceived everyone that he's rescued from Lombardy to be, like a god who is absolutely perfect, who's going to show us and guide us the way. And as Norman sees what Barbara went through, and they're waiting for his answer, we see what is actually the huge facility, which is just all these demon parts in jars, in the same manner that the demons have for the humans. And well, this is similar to my idea of what could have happened when they got into a human world. I mean, I think the series is going to end with them getting into human world, and they're going to be happy. But I feel like a lot of the ideas that I actually had for if they actually did go to human world are being incorporated here, of the demons actually being in charge themselves, and it's actually a reverse of the coin. But again, this is showing again just the absolute greyness of the world, and just how complex these characters have actually been based on the different experiences that they've actually gone through. And Norman continues on and reassures them all that we've come this far. Of course, there's no stopping us. Now. And we get a flashback at this point to February 2047. So this was around about a year ago itself, when Emma was on the run. I believe this was actually a year ago. Yeah. This was a year ago. So this was actually, I think, around the time when Goldie Pond was taking place. As Norman and Vincent meet each other, and it's this is it. Lamberda's research data. This isn't enough, but it does have a record on most of us cattle, depending on what demons eat, how they mature, how they regenerate and degenerate, and how they die. As we see Norman just coming in conflict with some demons in the flashback, and it's we really don't have enough data on you demons. And that flashback is really subtle but really effective in showing just how far Norman has actually come, and how they've able to collect so much of the demons that this creates, that they're able to put them in jars and actually just observe everything, every idea, every nature of their DNA and what they actually are, and even to capture a demon themselves. Is pretty damn impressive, if I do say so myself. Anyway, to close out the chapter, I know this was quite short, but again, there really wasn't a lot of dialogue in this chapter. It's mostly Norman just thinking about what his clans actually mean for him, and what his responsibilities lie now. Emma and Ray have gone down their own path. He's gone down his own path, and they just can't be a team as they once were at this point. And he goes on to say, "I haven't lost my way. Everything from the beginning, I've decided to do this alone. All of this is something I should carry along," which is, of course, something Emma did not want to happen. But again, he's built himself up with this reputation that he feels like there's no other way that he can actually get out of this. He has to do this alone. He's done this alone for 2 years without Emma and Ray, and he feels like them being there will just be a detriment to him. So again, Ray will probably think like, Norman, I know you're lying, but even if you're not lying, don't come crying to me if something bad happens. But at the same time, if you are lying, again, don't come crying to me if something bad happens. Ray probably saw that Norman was lying and just trying to put on a brave face for Emma, and was like, I don't agree with what you're going to do, Norman, but that's the point. That's the point we've had to come to, and we just can't be a team anymore. Ray probably saw that of what was happening, and he probably didn't do anything because he knew that how complex that situation would have been, and if he did spill the beans, Emma probably would have just like hammered it in of how much Norman doesn't need to be a god. But again, even if that had happened, I doubt it would have changed the outcome of the conversation that had actually happened. He goes on to say, Emma and Ray are kind, but kindness doesn't bring victory. In this world. Again, talking about the actual whole world itself. And Norman. Again, like I said, he's been through such a dark situation. I can see where he's actually coming from here. He goes on to say, in reality, if I didn't choose to get shipped out, all of us wouldn't have been able to escape. Now, you don't know that, Norman. You're hypothesizing again of what could have actually happened. You probably would have been able to actually escape with them, even if you had got shipped out. And again, I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if Norman had actually been able to escape. And again, this is a perfect contrast to what's just happened in the anime, with Norman give that positivity to Ray through his mind, through his ghost on the bridge, and saying we would have been able to do this if it's all thanks to, but it was all thanks to him. But again, here he's thinking like, even if I didn't get shipped out, we wouldn't have been able to escape anyway. So all of us, and some of us would have actually been left behind. And again, showing how dark and how grey he's actually being at this point. Before he goes on to say, I have no regrets. I want to save them, Emma, Cecil, and all the rest of our comrades, and for that reason, I'll gladly become a god and a devil if I have to. And the ending caption says, he is alone on the path to atonement, and he ends the chapter by just saying Emma's name, and that's where the chapter ends. And again, this ending picture, it just shows like just the level of duality that Norman is being, and whether or not he's actually going to be a god or a devil. That's what has to happen, and he has to save them by any means necessary. And again, this is the picture that I was referring to when I felt like Sydney's right and Norman may turn out to be the bad guy, and he's because he has just like this look of devilish of evilness on his face, of the fact that he's gonna have to betray Emma to actually make sure that everyone else survives. But again, he's gonna have to betray Emma's trust and make sure her plan doesn't succeed while his plan succeeds as well. And again, it could lead to a civil war, it could not. And this point right here, it kind of reminded me of how Light Yagami viewed himself as God, as a god of the world, and Norman is starting to view himself as a god in the same way, and doing whatever it takes to make sure that his family and his comrades survive, even though he doesn't agree with what all his comrades are actually doing, or the plans that they're actually going to bring into fruition. But anyway, guys, that was all those chapters. It took us a while to get through it, guys. I feel like I've been here for way longer than I thought I was going to be. But yeah, this will probably be the longest video I've ever done, but it was worth it, guys, to just talk about these chapters and just get them out of the way. Now, what does that leave for the rest of this week? Well, obviously we've got chapter 130 coming out, which I'll probably be doing on Sunday. I'm probably going to get that out on Sunday, but on Wednesday and Thursday we're going to, depending on what mood I'm in, we're going to be talking about We Neverland, because the anime is coming out on Sunday, and I want to just do a brief, I just want to do like a quick 20-minute video to get people up to speed with the series. I won't be going through up to where we are at right now in the current manga. I'll just be going through brief overviews of what the characters are and what their prime motivations are. So anyway, guys, that is it. Whew. Yeah, so this will be Lasher Luke signing off. Later, guys.